So Jim, did she get it right?
She did get it right. The one thing that she spared on was it was a big cold call, Cornell, walking up to that whole group, but I wanted to meet her. And her friend were taking their picture. So I tried to take their picture. Oh, can I take your picture? And me and technology are not best friends. So I think I might have gotten like a shot of one of their shoulders.
There was no picture.
Or the picture didn't even come out. So, that wasn't too impressive. But to add on to that, a little over a year later, we were walking down a beach about an hour from here. And I said, hey, I wrote you this letter 9 years ago. She said, 9 years ago? We met and we've only been dating a little over a year. So the story behind that is I was in Bakersfield, California, building my real estate business many years ago. And it seemed for me, I'd go on a date and my famous word was, yeah, it was nice. And it just wasn't there. It was kind of my, And so I got home from a lunch date. I don't even remember what it was. And I had made that, my friend called, hey, I was, and I sat at my desk, my home office desk, and I just wrote this list and said the one. And I'd like to think it wasn't ego. It was very intuitive, a pull from the gut. And I wrote out this list, Cornell, on one sheet of paper. And I handed that list to her 9 years later. And anyone who reads that list says, that's Jamie to a T. Wow, that's Jamie, what she looked like, her eyes, her smile, the things that she was into, it was her to a T. So I wrote that and handed it to her 9 years later on the day that I'd written it, because I had actually
dated it.
I had actually dated it. So it was the 17th of August.
Which was my grandmother's birthday.
Yeah, so it was pretty special. So that was the story. We met on a very, very chance thing of I wasn't even supposed to be out that night, and had stepped into a place I had never been with a good friend, and then a little over a year later, I handed a list I had written about her 9 years earlier. So that's our story.
So Jim, I have to ask you, you wrote that list. Were you in a period where you were exhausted relationally, or were you just meeting the wrong women? Where were you at?
Yeah, I was always a holdout, because I didn't meet Jamie till my mid-30s, and people were like, oh, you're waiting too long. I was in a point where I was past the games and I wanted something of real substance. And so that's where I wrote that list. I said, well, what do I want? And so I think I was in a searching mode, but also I didn't want to be like, is that it? Is that it? Is that it? So there was a little more past, like, frantic. I was a little more comfortable saying, no, this is what I want. This is what I'm waiting for.
Jamie, I've got to ask you, because I work with a lot of women, and I know a lot of times those stories sound really beautiful, but at the moment it's like freaking you out, like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. What were you thinking when you read this list and you're like, oh my God, that's me? What were your thoughts?
Oh, I thought it was really incredible, because I'm super into spirit, and nothing's a coincidence. I truly believe, intuition and guidance. And so it was so powerful and affirming to me. One thing that I'll add to the story that I think is kind of funny is when you make lists like this, you have to be careful what's on them, and then also think about what's not on them. So 2 things that that was on his mental list, but he didn't write on the list, was no single moms and no tattoos.
It was just, I just wasn't, and Jamie had both. And I had always said, I just didn't want to get into the drama, and I just thought it was best. And I didn't have that on the list. And I remember meeting her and just being like, wow. And I didn't even go back to the list. I mean, we had been dating several months before I even came across it in my journal. And I remember a friend saying, I think you want to take a chance with this one. I know you don't want to date. And it was never against the woman. It was about the potential situations. And man, am I glad I made that, that wasn't on the list, and it was something that I left off.
Yeah. So how did you, I guess, reconcile with those few things that you didn't really want? How did you reconcile that? Did you meet her and just say, this is worth it? Or how was that for you?
It was an unbelievable bonus. I mean, I know I'm going to speak to your audience real quick. I said Cornell, and I'm not a violent guy, but if someone said to me one more time, oh, when you meet him, you'll just know, you just want to punch him. Like, don't say that to me again. Oh, you're just going to know. But for me, it was like better than what I'd expected. You ask for something and then you get bonus and double whipped cream on top. And, the boys and I hit it off famously. 2 beautiful little boys. Jamie had, stood up for herself, got out of a very bad marriage and situation. Loved these boys unbelievably, started her schools, and they were looking for a dad. And, you know, and we hit it off famously. So for me, it was like, wow, I saw it as a bonus. I saw it as an add-on to the adventure, which might sound crazy to some guys out there, but for me, it was ripe for the picking. So we're like the luckiest blended family in the world as far as I'm concerned, because we went on to have 2 more kids. Adopted, biological, you love them all the same.